Hello class, welcome to our second lesson about adding integers. Today we're going to have you work on a few things on your own for just a little bit of time to make sure you're on the right track on some questions. And then we're going to work on some extra questions dealing with a word problem type scenario and a few questions dealing with adding multiple integers. The first question that I want you to look at is this warm-up activity, which just has 6 questions that ask you to find the answer. So I think it would be good right now if you pause the video at this point and try these 6 questions out and make sure you understand how to find their answers. What you want to think about is, are they both positive? Are they both negative? Is it one of each? Those types of scenarios should be helpful for you as you're going through this question. So I'm just going to go away just for a minute and let you try these out, and then we'll come back together and see if you got the answers. So you can keep watching this video. There should be some time for you to be able to look at these answers. Okay, hopefully you either paused the video or went through during the last couple seconds and found these 6 answers. So let's go through these 6 answers and make sure we understand where they're coming from. Number 1 should be 13. That should be the easy one. Just take 9 plus 4, it's 13. Number 2, there's 2 negatives, so you add them up. 5 plus 1 is 6, and it's negative because they're both negative. Negative 8 and 13, one of each, so 13 minus 8 is 5, and the bigger number is positive, so the answer is 5. 12 plus negative 8, similar reason. 12 is higher, so 12 minus 8 is 4, and the answer is 4. Negative 10 plus 6, I'm just going to do 10 minus 6. That's 4, but that should be negative because the bigger number is negative. And the probably an easy question here is negative 14 and 14, which makes 0 because it's the same number, just one's positive and one's negative. If those 6 questions went well, then everything from last lesson must have gone okay. And you're still, we still need to work on a few things with multiple numbers, but you're on the right track in order to be successful about adding integers. You'll notice here that there's more than more than 2 integers, excuse me, that you're adding together. Remember, when you do adding and subtracting, you got to go from left to right. So if you go from the left side of the question to the right side of the question, that's how you want to find that answer. So for this first one here, I could take 6 plus 5, that's 11, and then plus negative 3, and that's 8. I know this is not normal for many of you to show your work, but I need you to show your work systematically like I'm doing here. Okay, this is a little bit more challenging to do depending on how you're writing things, but I need you to start getting into the habit of writing some work like this. And so you need equal signs between each line, and I want you to kind of show each step. I know you could do this whole thing in your head, but I want to see the middle step as you're looking at this. So that's my expectation. Some students will ask, can I write it kind of horizontally? That would be fine. Some of you would rather write horizontally as opposed to vertically. That would not be a problem. But I think you probably want to make sure that you're looking at things correctly. And so when you're dealing with these questions, it really helps me out if you would show it this way. So for the second one, I would take negative 6 plus 8. That's one of each. So 8 minus 6 is 2. And its higher value is positive, so it's 2. And then negative 15, that's one of each again. So 15 minus 2 is 13, but the bigger number is negative. Now, because I'm doing addition, I could use the commutative property and flip-flop things, or I could associate in different ways, okay, with the associative property. So if I was looking at this last question, what I would probably do is add the 2 negatives up first, which would be negative 25, and then minus 8, or plus 8. 21 minus 8 would be 13. You can do that because it's addition. You can't do that with subtraction. So if there's subtraction involved, you got to go left to right. So there is a benefit to doing addition versus subtraction on a lot of these cases. The next question just has a bunch of numbers, and what I like to tell students to do on questions with a lot of numbers is scan the problem first. So you notice I've scanned this problem, and I've noticed that there's a 5 here and a plus negative 5 here. That's really nice because they cancel each other out. And then I just go left to right. Negative 4 and negative 4 make negative 8 because they're both negative. Add them up. And then plus 6, 1 negative, 1 positive. 8 minus 6 is 2, but it's negative because the bigger number was negative. Notice how I'm showing the equal sign. I need you to do that. I'm going to be kind of looking for that as you're doing some of your homework pieces. So make sure that you are showing your work appropriately for these questions. Original problem equals step equals answer, for example. The next question is just a quick word problem and real-world application about negatives and positives. A lot of people say, well, when do I use absolute value? Or when do I use these integer things? If you have any type of bank account, the idea of withdrawing and depositing is negative and positive. Typically, it's not just integers. There may be some decimals involved, but it's the same idea. Withdrawing is taking money out of the bank, so your bank account goes down. So that's why a withdraw says negative 40. A deposit says go up, okay, or put it into your account. So that's why it's a positive 50 or 75 in this case. One way to do this question is to just systematically go down from the top. Now, what this question doesn't tell you is how much money was in your bank account to start with. But you'll notice all we're trying to do is find the change in the bank account. So it doesn't matter if you had $1, $5, $100, $1 million like my bank account has, okay? But when you're figuring out change, it doesn't matter what you started with. So I could have $1,000 or $10,000. It doesn't matter. You're trying to figure out how much it changed. And so it's irrelevant to what you started with. So there's two ways to go about this. You can just start from the beginning, say negative 40 plus 50, find that answer, and then plus 75, find that answer, plus negative 50, find that answer. Typically in banking questions, though, we should probably think about adding up all the deposits together, add up all the withdrawals together, and then cancel them out. So I tend to use that idea. So I would take negative 40 and negative 50 together, and that's negative 90 because they're both negatives, and add them up. And then I take the 75 and 50 together and add that together, and that's 125. Notice all I've done is addition, and typically for students, addition is easier than subtraction. So now I've added the two negatives, I've added the two positives, and now they can go at each other and then compare. So now take 125 plus negative 90. That's one of each. So take 125 minus 90, that's 35, and you end up with a positive 35 because the deposits were more than the withdrawals. Some months that's true, some months it's the opposite if you have looked at a bank account closely. And as you get older, I think you'll be looking at that in more detail, especially once you start getting a first job and having a paycheck and looking at that deposit versus withdrawing a little bit closer. I know I look at those things a lot, like when I buy bobbleheads, for example. Okay, that's all for the assignment today. You'll notice it has a few questions at the beginning. There's some thinking questions at those very first ones. A lot of those answers are in the section, so if you're not sure what the answer is, flip back a few pages in the book. So 1 through 7, all of those. Number 24, I'd like you to try that one out so you can see if you get it right or not. And then 31 through 49 is odd questions. You need to make sure you show the original problem, make sure you put your equal signs between your steps, and check your odd questions in the back of the book. If there's questions that you want to talk about next class period, we can do that. But if you've got all the odd questions on the right track, you're probably in good shape when it comes to adding integers. Have a good day, everybody.